Hello. Hi, everyone. So I am Mocha Mazel with Black Expats and Repats in Jamaica. So today we are doing a feature. We are doing a BERJ member spotlight on Dr. Nicole Files-Thompson. Okay. So before I release her upon y'all, okay, I'm just going to give you a brief rundown. Okay. So, Dr. Fowl, so I know her. She's been a member of Black Expats Repass in Jamaica for a while now. So she has been a member of our group, and she has contributed so much educationally about Jamaica, and she'll get into all of her accolades and such and so forth. Just a moment, but I would like to thank y'all for watching, being a part of this broadcast. So, just really quickly, I had your file pulled up, but if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself while I get into the details and everything.
The details of me?
Well, whatever,
You're pulling up the details of me? Okay. Uh,
just your bio.
uh, me give the bio or you're going to give the bio?
Welcome you
Okay.
place, and then I'm just gonna give just like a tidbit, and then we can elaborate from there.
All right. So I am Nicole Files-Thompson, um, and a 3-year expat in Jamaica. I went to Howard University for undergrad, Georgia State for my master's, Howard for my PhD in media studies. Um, I am an associate professor at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, the first HBCU in the country. It's in Pennsylvania. Not to be there is another Lincoln, but we're the Lincoln University. And I love Jamaica. I love HBCU education. I love that Black travel. Um, my research has moved later in my career to tourism studies, but I'm a Black feminist scholar, and a lot of my work centers on race, class, gender, and sexuality. And I'm excited to talk to y'all.
Okay, so fantastic. You basically just reiterated what I was going to say, but thank you anyway. So I just want to let this is very important that we have people like Dr. Nicole in our space, especially when it comes to like the educational framework and things like that of understanding race, and especially with Jamaica and tourism, all those things like that. So I'm so happy to be able to talk to you and have you live with us. So yes, very well endowed. So currently you are a professor, Department of Mass Communications
Hmm.
at Lincoln,
Yes.
and you are the founder of Teach, Learn, Travel Jamaica, which we are going to get into. So hopping into it. So can you tell us like a little bit about your background or your origins and how you came to be, so to speak? Like, how did you become this person, and what led you to Jamaica?
Okay. Well, first you can call me Nicole.
Okay.
Uh, because although living in Jamaica, it is really difficult for me. Um, Most of my Jamaican friends call me Dr. T, which is what my students call me. I've found that Jamaica is a culture that is very respectful of titles. So no matter how much I tell folks, just call me Nicole, they don't. Which is why when I was choosing my name, I just put Nicole. So you can call me Nicole because I'm a regular person. Sometimes I feel like the titles make you feel like you're not a regular person. And when I go through my bio and stuff, it seems like that person is not a regular person.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but my origins, um, I'm originally from Massachusetts. I went to school, obviously, in Washington, D.C., Atlanta. I lived in New York. When I first graduated, I lived in Baltimore. Um, I worked in my past life before I was a professor. I worked in TV production. I was a writer and producer. And my very first trip abroad was to Jamaica. When I first got a passport, I went on spring break with my homegirls to Jamaica, and it was a powerful experience for me to get off the plane and not only see. So I was at a HBCU, so I was used to being around Black people all the time. So that was a comfort, getting off the plane and being in Jamaica. But what was beautiful and meaningful to me was seeing us everywhere, on billboards, on TV, all of those things. And so it also started a travel bug. But no matter all the places in the world I've been, Jamaica has always been somewhere that I was like, once a year, I'm coming to Jamaica, just because something moved my spirit about Jamaica. I would get friends to come. Um, Eventually got enough courage to come by myself, friends, family, whoever would come. I guess we'll talk later about then that grew into me bringing students and everything else. But how I got to be an expat, should I go into that? How I landed here? Like
Yeah.
landed?
Yes, but I just have to, because I think we had similar transitions to Jamaica, because I first came here when I was in college as well. And I came with my classmates, they were actually from Jamaica. So I kind of just tailed along with them when they came back one summer.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Like I was in awe. Like I would just see like billboards and just Black people. Like, you know, it's like it was
Yeah. It
the
was totally
whole
like,
world.
wow.
I love this place.
Right. Like Black folks selling bread on the billboard.
The bus was riding past me. I just saw this big ad on the bus. It was like beautiful Black lady, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um. So yes, how did you transition into being a visitor into being an actual expat?
Okay. So I applied for a Fulbright after I got tenure. That was one of my post tenure goals. My dissertation to get my PhD was about Black women's experiences as tourists in Jamaica. And that was encouraged by my dissertation committee, who was like, "You love Jamaica." And I was doing media studies stuff, and I just stumbled upon sex tourism research, and they kept talking about sex tourism in Jamaica, which led me to like, what is this about? And so my dissertation research, I did that. But then as an academic, I continued on the media studies path. But I said, once I get tenure and I don't have to always do media studies for my publications, I'm going to go back to my human communication research, and I'm going to apply for a Fulbright. And so that's what I did. As soon as I got tenure, I applied for a Fulbright to do research in Jamaica on tourism. First round, I didn't get it. Reapplied the next year, got it the second year, which was, so I arrived in 2019. And then, like, just as I was gaining momentum, I met my University of West Indies grad students, and we were like getting a groove going, but we were online because my research was centered in tourism. So it didn't really make a lot of sense for me to live in Kingston. So they were gracious and said, we'll just do our research seminars online. So we're just getting in the groove of the semester of the 2020, January. COVID happened. I'm on Fulbright, and they send like this email. Everybody got to come home from all over the world. And I was like, wait, what? I had just moved it, finally found a house after, time and debating on where I was going to live. And so I had all this stuff. I had a house. Um, and I, in the beginning of COVID, they weren't really saying, it was like, oh, it wasn't really serious. And even though they were talking about borders closing, it was like, oh, maybe for a month or so. So they were, the ambassador called my phone because Fulbright is through the Department of State and said, "You need to get on a plane." And so I hung up and I talked to my husband and my family. We did a conference call. And at that point, the numbers were exploding in the US. There were nothing happening in Jamaica. And so they were like, "You're safer there. Just stay." But me staying meant, one, I didn't know when I was going to be able to come home. And two, I no longer had all of my safeguards from being here through the Department of State. And I was, I was defying what they told me to do. Um, but my family's opinion was more important. So I decided to stay. The borders closed, and what was supposed to be me being here for a year, being here with the borders closed, changed my perspective on everything in life, including how long I was going to be in Jamaica. And so that's what started me not just temporarily being in Jamaica, but me starting a new path in my life as an expat in Jamaica.
Wow. So I think that's like, I mean, around the time the group started, I think that's when everybody kind of had their wake up call.
Mm-hmm.
Corona came, I was like, soon as them borders open up, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened. So that's a very non-traditional route. Coming to Jamaica through the Fulbright, and I want to know, what are your thoughts, like, for as far as like research, and I want to get into your research after this, but like, what do you think about the route that you took? Do you recommend it for others, or do you think it's something that's accessible for a lot of people? Like, in regards to your situation, like, what do you think for the next person? Like,
So I shout to the hills anybody who will listen to apply for a Fulbright, because it is an awesome route to go, not just Jamaica, but anywhere, and be abroad for a year. You can do small, low projects that are shorter than that, but you don't have to be a professor. You can be an artist, you can be a chef, you can be a musician. You just have to put together a project that this is what I'm going to do in X country. So Jamaica. So I want to come to Jamaica, and I'm a chef and I'd like to explore culinary traditions in Jamaica. You put it together in a proposal, because the point of Fulbright is, one, to learn and do a project or do some research or teaching or community service. But it's so that the point of it, the short story of it, is so that people around the world, you're a representative of Americans, right? So they want people who are going to represent the different walks of life of US Americans and make it a good look, right? Be a good look for the US in communities that might not encounter people from the US outside of media. So a lot of people think if they've heard of it, they think it's only professors, and it's not. And so in the future, I am way open to doing a talk about Fulbright. And so actually just yesterday, so I do a lot of Fulbright mentoring, reading over people's proposals. Just yesterday, someone that I helped them with their proposal this year to go to Italy, they just found out they got it. So they're headed to Italy in August, right? So, and they're a filmmaker, right? Not a professor, filmmaker. So she wants to do filmmaking and do a documentary on domestic violence in Italy, because she's Italian, and she has a connection through her history there. That's a big thing about Fulbright too. They like to so it's a good thing for repats. They like it when people have a tie to the country they're trying to go to. Whether I'm Jamaican, but I've never been to Jamaica. My grandfather was Jamaican, and I want to explore and learn more about the culture that I'm from. That's a big bonus for Fulbright applications. So yeah, it's 100%. I tell everybody, apply.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
Oh, and
I,
they pay you too. You get a stipend, you get a living stipend, so you get a salary essentially. And the salary does depend on like rank, but the rank is based on like pretty much comparable to around what folks probably are making in their careers. They also pay you get like a stipend to get books and send your a travel stipend to get there and get home and bring all your stuff. And then you get a living stipend, like for housing and stuff. And in some countries, they'll give you housing. Jamaica was one that was like, we'll give you the stipend and you can figure it out, which was a bonus because I might not have stayed had I moved into housing on UE's campus in Kingston or in Mo Bay because
Mhm.
it would have been just a different kind of environment. But yeah, so that's another reason why I tell people like it's not a financial invest. It's you're still gonna make money, still gonna be able to pay your bills back home.
That's great to know. Don't want to dig off in that at a later time, but
Yes.
let's get into, if we can. I want to know more about your research,
Okay.
and I want to know all about, well, whatever you're able to share, I guess, at this present time. But so is it dealing with sex tourism? Is it dealing with Black women? Like the specifics of it, is it just dealing with Black women tourism in Jamaica? Like, or is it conferences of all those things? Um,
So
what is it?
okay, so the Fulbright, the Fulbright was an offshoot of things that I discovered doing interviews with Black women about their experiences. So the Fulbright, I'll keep that. That's the shorter, kind of more nerdy project. The Fulbright that I was awarded was for doing research on the informal and sharing economies of Jamaica, tourism economies of Jamaica. So um, all basically home sharing economies are like Airbnb, home away VRBO. And informal economies are all the people that, when the borders closed and tourism closed, had no tourists to sell to or drive or take on tours or have sex with, um, but also had no way to be compensated because they're informally employed. Like, so the people that you see when you're on the beach selling necklaces and stuff, right? They're not working for anybody. The people that are tour guides that have Instagram pages or on Facebook, um, people that work in the entertainment industry. So this was pre-COVID. So the research was about how is it more of a mutual benefit between those Jamaicans and Black tourists, right? How do they continue to sustain their livelihoods through Black tourism? Because I've found that Black tourists in particular are less likely to engage the informal tourism economy because they're in a resort. Um,
Mhm.
so how do we get folks out? But when people do, Black tourists do engage the informal tourism economy, they tend to come back and back and back and back and explore more things. Obviously, they sew more into Jamaican culture. They learn more about Jamaican culture. So that was the Fulbright, which is why when COVID ended everything, including my Fulbright, the tourism economy stopped, right? So the things that I was thinking about economic sustainability and the tourism industry, I learned more in that time about the tourism economy than I could have ever hoped to if if I just was doing my research project like normal in a different year, because I had no idea how many people were impacted. And again, I knew about the informal tourism economy, but I didn't know, like, well, if there's there's literally nothing. There's literally nothing. Like, and the resilience of people to survive that amount of time was just, yeah, I learned exponentially. So that's that Fulbright research. But how I got there, to go back to my dissertation research about Black women, and that was about, it started as about sex tourism. Um, because everyone knows how Stella got her groove back, the movie. I'm in media studies, so I was writing a paper about how Stella got her groove back, and Terry McMillan and empowerment. I'm a Black feminist, so I was always trying to look for empowering messages for Black women. So as I'm like doing research for this paper, because I felt like Terry McMillan was like totally empowering, her characters were to me, and Stella in that movie, I saw many things that many Black women found empowering. But as I'm like in nerdy research databases, when I type in how Stella got her groove back, all this sex tourism research comes up. And I was like, sex tourism, what's this? And it came up because there was research about, do women do sex tourism too? People are kind of familiar with, men go to Thailand or Amsterdam and engage with sex workers, but do women do it too, was all this research I found. But in this research I found that do women do it too, they were like interviews and surveys with women, but then they would be like, we didn't talk to any Black women, but there's this movie, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, so they do it too. And I'm like, my nerdy researcher self is like, one, that's not how research works. Two, that was allowed to slide because we're so silenced in academic research. But I was a traveler, and the attitude about it seemed negative and kind of undermines the empowering messages that Black feminists would say came from Terry McMillan and that character, but all of her characters, that it made me want to talk to Black women about their experiences in Jamaica, which I thought was going to center on sexuality. And it did in many ways, but it expanded for me to understand more things about Black women and what they learn when they go to places and travel, and how they understand their Americanness and all of that. But the center of that research was about Black women's experiences with Jamaican men when they were on vacation, intercultural communication experiences. And most of the women did not have sex when they were, most of the people in my study, on that first time they went, there were many who came back, but all of them had some type of romantic type of experience. So romance meaning like holding hands, but all of them had experiences with Jamaican men trying to get at them, right? But that means so much more than sex, actual physical sex for all women, right? Feeling beautiful, feeling your body is okay, feeling your hair is okay, your skin is okay, feeling desired, wanted. But then there's all things loaded in that it's not just that, it's also nationality and perception and stereotypes and all of that, right? So yeah, that was along to all of my research areas in Jamaica.
Okay. Okay. So, in regards to what you have discovered in regards to Black women's experiences, is there anything in particular that just really screams out, or like just is like an alert or I don't know something, anything in particular that just like is blaring, you know.
Black women feel good about themselves in Jamaica, and that's awesome. And the they feel good about themselves for a lot of reasons, right? Because they're on vacation, because they're able to be on vacation, because they feel beautiful, they feel um, when anybody's on vacation, not just Black women or wherever you are, time and space is compressed. So your relationships develop faster, and who you are in a tourist space is different than who you are at work, at home, with your friend girls in your home city. And so, yeah, Black women feel differently and more positively about themselves, their bodies, their lives um, in Jamaica.
So okay, so in regards to sex tourism, because it's kind of we are aware of like the phenomenon, I guess, of what it's called, and I think I want to like and not like the is I know there are gender dynamics
Yes.
with this because especially with all these shows and all these stuff coming out, TLC and all that. But
Mhm.
I think for the most part, um, so what do you think in regards to the gender dynamics? Because I feel, I think what other people feel, especially with, I want to say, well, more so, especially with Caucasian men, or I don't know, whatever, anybody that has any type of like hierarchy or more like a social elevation, they use it as a means to be predatory.
Mhm.
And you know, what especially depending on like where they're going and the economy and all this stuff there. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm kind of like I don't know how to feel. I know how to feel about it in some regards, especially in regards to the predatory stuff.
Mhm.
And but it's such a conundrum or like I don't know.
Okay, so my a lot of it, whether it's research or just attitudes in general, when it comes to sex tourism, sex work, sexuality, is about what your attitude about it, like your approach to thinking about it, has everything you loaded into it, right? So if you feel negatively about sex work, then you're going to feel negatively about people who engage in sex workers, right? If you have conservative attitudes about sexuality, then that's going to load into how you feel about people having sex with people while they're on vacation. But my approach to research in sex tourism is the link between sex and tourism. Meaning, sex tourism is not just about someone going somewhere to engage in sex with somebody. People are sexual beings wherever they are. People biologically have desire, right? Most
Mhm.
people have desire, right? So I always give this example to people. When we think about college students going on spring break in Palm Beach, we assume people are having sex, right? They're on vacation, they're young, they're having sex. But then when we get to thinking about the boys, of course they're going to have sex. Well, if they're going to Palm Beach to have sex, that means that there are girls there too that they're having sex with. And why can't we say that they went to Palm Beach to have sex too, right? We don't think of it the same way. So that's the first thing when it comes to thinking about sex tourism is separate, like everybody has sex. And whether you have sex at home with the guy you went on 5 dates with or on vacation with a guy you met at the club, sex is sex and people want to have sex, right? So anywhere you go, people are going to be having sex on vacation. It's part of it, right? There's your inhibitions are down. You're in, everybody here. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and that's kind of as they don't think about it more than that, or they don't think about it the same way as they think about when women or men are having sex with Jamaicans in Jamaica. So I argue we shouldn't think about it. We should reframe how we think about it. The predator aspect. So that's a lot of how the framework is. And I argue in my research is that we have to consider race, class, and gender and nationality when we're thinking about, like, all of those intersections shape the dynamics of relationships, and with tourists and locals. And exploitation is relative. And so a lot of the research points to that women don't know that they're even engaging in sex tourism, right? We hear a lot of stories. I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories about, I didn't know, I found out the man was a gigolo, right? The man had 5 girlfriends, right? So they don't even know, right? But then people will say that it's Western women coming down to take advantage and take Jamaican men, right? So how did those two things hold true at the same time, right? Um, so the other part of it is that this same fair exchange ain't no robbery. So again, if 2 people are consenting adults and want to have sex, then people have motives for everything in life. So exploitation is a slippery slope in generalization. And I think particularly when it comes to talking about Black people on either side. And yeah, some people don't even realize that they are sex workers or that they're engaging sex workers, or because there's like this mental block on sex work in general, sexuality in general, that people can't consider that, yes, I want sex and nothing else, or yes, in exchange for sex, I got these things, or this, if it's not I paid $500, then it's not sex work. Well, you paid for a whole vacation while you came to Jamaica, you were all over the island, eating, drinking, living life, and both of y'all were having fun. But that was exchange, right? So that's the long answer to, it's just an approach and attitudes that I think and hope will shift through my work, but particularly when we're thinking about tourism and race and class and gender issues when it comes to sexuality and tourism.
That's a whole lot to take in. Practice. I don't even know what. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, okay. I don't know if I want to just like quickly. Okay. So, what are your, like, are you finished? Like, where are you at with your research now? Like, are you wrapping it up? Is it ongoing?
So it's ongoing. Right now I'm working on a chapter. It's autoethnography. So I'm centering myself in the subject and in the research and thinking back on my interviews with Black women and this whole notion of how Stella Greta grew back. And so when I came as a researcher, and I need to make connections with people in the informal tourism economy, but I'm here like as a whole researcher on a grant, but I'm in my house like, okay, I'm gonna go out to the beach, and I'm like, all right, I can't wear this bathing suit and I can't wear that bathing suit, like thinking about how do I make myself look less like a tourist and less so people are not out there trying to holler at me, or when I'm talking to them and like, no, I'm really want to go on your tour because I want to do research, not because, like, so when we exchange numbers, it's not about the hookup, right? How much I had to think about that because of perceptions of Black women as tourists in tourist areas in Jamaica, where Stella's, right? So it's like, what does that mean, and how unfortunate it is. Again, that's something that was an empowering message when you're sitting at home can be disempowering at the same time, and me trying to fight against this stereotype. And it's sad and unfortunate that there's this negative energy around Stella, particularly because of what ended up happening with Terry McMillan and the guy that the story was loosely based on. But yeah, so that's the chapter I'm working on now, in a book about race and ethnicity in communication. So it's ongoing stuff, and I still do the research about tourism economies more broadly in COVID recovery, and yeah.
Okay. So we have some questions. Some of them later.
Okay.
But this one asks, okay, after when I ask the question, I want us to talk about this race conversation and all this stuff in Jamaica after this. But this person says, how were you received in Jamaica doing research on sex? Women I know there don't really speak openly about that in Jamaica. So I'm guessing, I don't know, were you tapping into like the local community regarding this, or just women coming there on vacation?
So no, so that research centered on African American women's lived experiences as tourists.
Okay.
So how I've been received in Jamaica through women I've met and talked to and talk about my research is the same way. It's really not a lot different than women I meet in the US, because we're not supposed to talk about sex and desire, right? Mm-hmm. So when I talk about those things, people are like, what that. So it's surprising in all spaces, academic space, all the spaces I'm in, when I'm like, I think sex work is not bad. People are like, what do you mean? So, yeah, the same mind-blowing response. But I would like to, in the future, do research, figure out a research project to talk to Jamaican women about sexuality, because I have had conversations and just experiences that make me like,
later
people to be empowered. And so I see a lot of disempowerment around sexuality in both of you, but in Jamaica, yes, I see it a lot in ways that is like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna have a part 2 when she gets further along in the research. But
yeah, so I will send to people, if you send me an inbox, I can send like a PDF of like some articles I wrote if you want to weed through all of my academic jargon. I'd be happy to send some articles. No problem.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna follow up that later. Information on that. Because I know people want to know more, and it's a taboo topic.
Yeah.
And I think it's so taboo. I don't think, like, for some people, I don't think it's more so about the sex. It's like what happens with some of these women afterwards, and how we have like these whole, like the Stella situation where they go and they migrating people, and they, some of them end up getting used, or they feel like somebody's taking advantage, or sometimes situations work out. I think it's so many like after effects, and it's like people are on alert. So
yeah, well, I can't see who's watching, but whoever is had probably seen me comment something on this topic. But the long and short of it is, a lot of times it's because people are only thinking about themselves. So people don't have lives outside of you, but it's just lack of communication and understanding and your attitude approach to it.
Okay. All right. moving forward. All right, moving on. So, as a researcher, all right,
Mm-hmm.
scholar, I know, you don't want that label, but still, it's having invested some type of research understanding. What are your thoughts about the racial dynamics in Jamaica? And so, in particularly with this group that I started, we have so many people who cannot just wrap their heads around like a black space. They just can't. They just can't understand it. They gotta have everybody else in the mix. And what's weird is they put these. They say, "Oh, Jamaicans love everybody," and la 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 and all this other stuff. But weirdly enough, I only come across that logic in my group. I really have encounters with Jamaica. I don't know, maybe it's where I'm at because I'm in Kingston. I
Well,
really
I
have.
was about to say, everybody loves somebody with money. That's just the bottom. That's the long and short.
I really have.
Everybody loves somebody. I love people who gonna give me some money too.
It's like,
So you don't encounter it in Kingston as much because you're not encountering as many people who are dependent upon.
but even the conversations, they're not like even just like completely delusional regarding race. They at least have some understanding, or or they at least they're willing to know. Or it's like I really have these encounters. But anyway, just get into like, what are your thoughts in regards to race relations in Jamaica? Because one out of many people, one love. Jamaicans love everybody. But what you think is the bigger picture regarding this?
Um,
And I'll share my thoughts as well. But
I think that we're Americans, U.S. Americans, and I'll even say British people and too, from what I've encountered, have a lot. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to say Americans because I'm going to talk about colonialism, right? So the we've had a lot more time with racial reckoning and emancipation than Jamaica and other places. So I think that some of it is just that is time, right? The time frame of when Jamaica was gaining independence, we were fighting for civil rights, right? So we were already 100 years forward in it, right? And
right,
understanding how race is systematic and right. And now in 2022, I think understanding colorism is contextualized by our history of social movements and movements for equality in a way that, and we also have more. It's fun. So out of many, one, right? But the U.S. is, the melting pot, that's tossed salad, all the things they call it, right? Where there is more diversity of people than there actually are, right? So people say, oh, that I see online. So I do a lot of social media research, right? So I see it online all the time, like, oh, there are white Jamaicans, Chinese Jamaicans, right? I see it all the time, right? And so I'm like, also like, where they at though? The in numbers enough for when people say it's a black country, people get offended. Like that's not true.
like how, like
Right?
I'm like, how do you not like who else? I don't see nobody. I might see a speck or something of somebody here and there, but you can't like Jamaica is not a melting pot. Lots of people come here. Lots of people from different ethnicities are here, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's not a melting. This is a black ass African
Yeah. I
country.
compare it to like at a PWI. Like, yes, there are other people there, but it's PWI because it's chips in the cookie.
What is y'all talking about? Like y'all
Yeah.
don't see. I don't see one of many people when I'm just anywhere. The only time I see the many people, the others stores or the shops or like
Yes.
areas. It's like, yo, I need. and that's why like we have just now started getting the verbiage around, you know, our isms and stuff like that. So
Yes.
I say yes, all the folks need time to catch up, you know.
And I won't even say so because I'm reluctant to say catch up because that adds like a superiority kind of thing. I'll just say that how far removed you are from a colonial past is going to dictate how you experience, and then also like what the motto means and why that motto means something, and what like who it worked. It was a powerful tool post independence, right? And what does it mean in bleaching? And I've had these conversations, like the things I thought about even bleaching before I lived in Jamaica. How I think about it is much different now, knowing people that bleach, that are normal people, that when I say like, why do you bleach? They're like, because everybody in my neighborhood does. Like, I've heard it's self-hate, but like there's not a like necessarily a conscious I hate myself and my skin tone going in the way that moving here you think about it and you want to like so
And I even
yeah.
heard so much like some people view it as a method of like upward mobility. Like
Yes.
I will have access to more things if my skin is lighter, not necessarily being that I hate myself or that, you know, like it's what I will have more access. I will have better life if my skin is lighter. And
Yeah.
of course, like all the other stuff plays into that.
But
Um,
it's true if you want like on TVJ and stuff when they play like they have a series that's like historical stuff in anything in the 60s and 70s, there's nobody brown uh, in those in positions of power or on TV and all those things. But also, um, I think because I'm a social scientist, I want to understand the how and the why
mhm.
way more than I want to be right, right? And give people space to like contextualize things. But um, I'm light skinned and folks have told me, why are you saying you're black? Because of my skin color, right? So for me, it's very real experience, the privileges I've gotten because of my skin tone, right? So knowing people who bleach that say what you're saying, right, is true. It's true. There's privileges. So as many people say, is it's wrong? It's this, I don't agree with it. As they move in society, there's privilege that comes with it. Like it just, yeah.
So Kwame says it's not true. Why Kwame? Why you say it's not true? Why he answers that? The thing I have such a connect because like it's such like a because Jamaica and the Caribbean is so important and vital into understanding Black liberation
Yes.
in the U.S. and globally, and it's like yo, like there's so much.
Yeah, Marcus Garvey and that, like, yes,
It's like
yes,
what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Y'all don't
yes.
understand race. You don't see race. It's such like a double whammy because it's like, and that's what a lot of us associate Jamaica with. Like, I guess for those on the outside, like we associate for the how Jamaica is marketed to us for the most part. Of course, it's weed and Rastafari and all these things like that. So, a lot of us come here like, yo, we finna be with our people. We finna fight the system and all this stuff. And then you get here and it's like they like, what you mean you don't see race? Or what you mean
Yeah, I don't fighting. I'm gonna move to Jamaica and fight the system. If that's your plan, then I don't. Yeah, no. But I think we can. And I'm sorry that I'm American. That's why I'm very American centric in my examples. But the same way as Black liberation movements in the US ebbed and flowed, right? So Garveyism and all that, yes, started and took hold um, in Jamaica. And then independence was gained, right? So the same way Black nationalism and all of that and was in full swing, and then we got our little bit of rights and little jobs and affirmative action and little concessions, and there was a whole period of time where people were like, this is good enough, this is how it, like, we're not lesser than, we can still get a job, right? So which is why then it was an upswing again, right? Once we started, having more technology to be able to record, for example, police brutality. We've always been brutalized by police, right? So it's not new, but it was in the shadows and people were like, this is how it is.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think there's an ebb and flow. And again, yeah, Black liberation, Pan-Africanism, that started
I don't do Jamaica.
in Jamaica.
Jamaica is so important. The Caribbean is so important to all of this stuff. Don't sit here and don't do that to them. I just get disheartening because it's like you don't even know. Like,
so I think
but it's like,
there's this idea of if everybody looks like you, then it can't be white supremacy. Because they understand white supremacy as white bodies and not ideologies and systems.
Yep.
And so that's the response I hear a lot. Although my first huge argument with a friend in Jamaica was about race. And I've learned, like, with many things, politics, Jamaican politics and stuff too. I'm like, mind my business. Because I don't want to get cursed out, and people are strong and they don't want to hear what I got to say. So cool. You asked me, Mocha, so I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not volunteering my thoughts on it in the everyday life in Jamaica. So I think, yeah, it's hurt when you see people like, no, it doesn't exist, is kind of like, what? What?
And I think
Black people doing it to us, it's like, okay, but yeah.
As Black Americans, like we have developed a keen eye for it. Like we recognize it, like when we see it. And so I think that's like also because it's like I spot something, like all the time, but to the average person who may not be, not the average person, but to who's not that familiar, like or knows like how this stuff functions. And yeah, it's just, yeah. So
there's also like things happening at the same time. So like hair politics is we're getting legislation in the US, and at the same time as Jamaica is trying to legislate people can wear their hair any way they see fit. Right? That's it's happening at the same time. If there was nothing wrong with it, and people will say that, oh, that's not about race, that's religion, right? With the locks. Okay, yes, but a religion that was Black folks with a Black king, right? Like, yeah, but it's the same. It's a comparative struggle, and we're doing things at the same time. So there's recognition and individual thing. So micro level, but not macro level.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Kwame said, what was he saying? That's not true too.
He was talking to somebody else, but he says back in the day, that was the case. It's about who you know. I guess he was talking about like the upward mobility and stuff like that, and getting up, necessarily with the bleaching, I guess. But
yes, but upward mobility is that it's just like the same as upward mobility in the US, where it's the good old boys club. So yeah, if you're not in it, then you can get in it. But what does that good old boys club look like? Right.
Okay. Oh wow, we're almost an hour in. I don't know how much time you got, but
I'm a talkative. So you cut me off when we need to get cut off.
Anybody else before I move on? So I kind of like wrap up. Like, okay, they're not talking about that. Anybody got any questions regarding this before we move on to some other stuff? If you can just put it in the chat and I'll come back to it. But so we're not holding everybody forever. Okay, so got your research, and you told us how you found out about it. So like what? So for those of us who are maybe thinking about coming to Jamaica for an extended amount of time and maybe want to go this route, like what is the process for obtaining, what did you have to do to are you just here on the tour? Were you here on the tourist visa, or what process did you have to go through to obtain short-term residency or what have you?
Okay, so it's the same process for I had to get a work permit. So that's the Fulbright. I got it, and you have to have an institution that sponsors you, right? That's going to claim you in the country. So it was the University of West Indies. So they were responsible. My work permit was through them. So they sponsored a work permit for me. And I actually got penalized because the system was not, I did come in on a tourist visa because I didn't have my work permit. That's now happened to me twice. I got penalized because the work permit process is slow, especially when you're working with a company, right? It's not a self-sponsored work permit. But so they sponsored my work permit. So I still had to do all the stuff of going with all the pay. So first with them, I sent them all of my stuff and they dealt with, but then when I got here, they paid the money and I had the work permit, but I still had to go to Kingston and go to the Ministry of Labor. All of the things are the same as work. It's work permit. I came in on a tourist visa because I didn't have the work permit at that time. So then I had to pay because I came in on the work permit. I mean, the tourist visa and not a work visa. And I had to go to Pika and get the yellow book, and it's for the yeah, the length of time, right? So my Fulbright, they had it until December of 2020, which was longer than my Fulbright, but they wanted me to continue working with their students, so they wanted it to the end of the semester. Graciously, despite my Fulbright being canceled because of COVID, they still were like, "You're here on a work permit, so you're good." But then after that, and because of COVID, after my work with you expired, Pika was gracious and every 3 months gave me extension. So they were like, what are you gonna do? And so commenced my waiting for grants to come through, but taking control into my own hands and starting Teach, Learn, Travel Jamaica because I was working on all these grants and didn't want to spend time waiting on a grant and having a visa status that wasn't correct and all that. So I was able to sponsor my own work visa through Teach, Learn, Travel Jamaica, so that now I don't have, I'm just working on grants that are going to benefit my research and intentions with travel and study abroads and writing retreats and those types of things. Instead of waiting on someone to sponsor me, I was like, let me not go through this again, because that was in limbo, and being in limbo visa status, I'm sure
Yeah.
you know, is not a good feeling. It's not. So yeah, but I became a lot more grateful to Yui once I found out how much a work permit costs, girl.
Yes, I think ain't cheap.
Yeah.
Because child, I definitely know. But okay, so for those interested in this route, outside of like the paperwork, just like what anything that you would just want to note, so especially as like a student, someone who may be, you know, not as familiar with the ins and outs, especially like doing research out in a different country, like anything like you would recommend or suggest to them to help them better prepare, if possible, particularly for Jamaica.
Okay. So if you're even thinking about it, looking at Fulbright, their website, they have so many resources and list of alums and everything else. So once you get it, they do connect you to alums in your host country. So I did meet everybody that was going to be in Jamaica. They bring us all together. So everybody that was going to Jamaica and people who had been to Jamaica before us to kind of go over like this is what you these are some of the expectations you should have.
Me, I'm sorry. Like, do you know? Can you give us and like, are you able? Like, what other research are people doing in Jamaica? Like,
So, and my cohort, someone was doing research on maroon communities. Someone was doing research on, and he was not a he had just finished undergrad and was gonna go to law school after. So it was like a gap year project for him. Um, a young woman did Caribbean feminist literature, so she was an English person. There was a guy doing criminal justice stuff, and so he was doing research in the prisons in Jamaica. Um, I know before me there was marine biologists, someone doing educational strategies, like so going to working with the Ministry of Education. So, you know, if you're a teacher in the US, Fulbright has a lot of categories of different grants, right? So if you're a K through 12 teacher, there are specific Fulbrights for you to come and do. Either you can come to learn about Jamaican like I want to come and learn about some of their teaching strategies, or to come and work and collaborate with Jamaican administrators. I and my cohort, or the people I've met, were not, they were all research projects, but people that I met that have gone to other countries. Like I said, she's a filmmaker that I just got it for Italy. So it's not that Jamaica doesn't do other than research. I just have a small kind of bubble. And there's actually a group of 6 of them here now that I'm terrible and need to connect with. I keep just like missing them, but they're all in Kingston, which makes it harder too, because West Side is the best side. So
don't sleep on Big Ton. Somebody asked, is the Fulbright open to only U.S. citizens?
Yes.
Okay, so it's only U.S. citizens that is open. And somebody else asked, what areas of research do they prefer?
There's not a preference. They don't have a preference. So you have to be a U.S. citizen to go to other countries. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you can get a Fulbright to go to the U.S.
Okay.
Right? So if you're Jamaican, British, whatever, you can go to the U.S. on a Fulbright. Does that make sense? Like the U.S. is not going to send a Jamaican to Uruguay. You can go to the U.S. U.S. citizens, if you want to go to the 180 countries they work with, you have to be a U.S. citizen for them to send you to another country.
Okay.
I forgot the second question.
I think that was somebody said, what areas of research do they prefer?
Oh, the preference. Yes, the preference is that you have a strong connection to the country in terms of purpose, and that you want to make a difference, right? So you want to do something that's going to be beneficial to the people in Jamaica, but also when you return, that's the second component, that you're going to benefit Americans with the knowledge you've gained in Jamaica. So, for example, in my project, it was about Black American tourists, right? And cultural exchange. But also another component was I was working with UE at the time. I was an administrator, so trying to get an agreement between our universities and all of that, right? So there has to be a purpose that's going to benefit the people in the host country and Americans.
Okay.
And there's not enough Black and brown people that do Fulbrights, and they know that, and they want to change it because it's a path into foreign service careers.
All right, y'all, get into their Fulbrights.
Yes, do it. The website there's so many different ones. Go to the website for sure.
We're going to post all your information post completion so people can, I guess, reach out to you for consultations and such if they're needing them.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's awesome. And I think, yeah, for those who want to come here and actually do something that's like substantial and you'll get a stipend for it possibly and all of them things. Yeah. So I think that's for somebody who's interested in it. I think that's a good route to look into.
Yeah, you can even bounce. Like if you contact me and I'm like, this is what I do. Like we can brainstorm ideas. Yeah.
All right. So now moving forward.
All right. Am I going to be a regular person? Are these regular person questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Talking about cultural exchanges, like, are you or like culture? What do you think culturally? Similarities, differences. Now we're focused specifically on Black peoples and Black persons. Mm-hmm. So as a Black American, cultural differences, similarities that you notice or that, super keen in your head? I don't know.
One of the things that I love about Jamaica is the sense of community. Like literal community. Like I feel like I hear stories like my mama tells me back in the day, if one person did something in the neighborhood, then they, but that's not necessarily the experience that we have now. I guess because of urban sprawl and all that. So that's a difference and similarity because I know that is something. I think all of us have heard those stories. But some, you better listen to your parents. Those type of things, that same energy is the same. Other similarities culturally. Respectability politics is a lot the same. In terms of you have to, if you're going somewhere, you better look this way, right? You look presentable, and you better not go outside with your hair looking like this or that. Like that's the same. Although some things like with the no sleeves in the government building is kind of like what? But at the same time, when you really think about it, like your mama wouldn't let you go. If you were like, I'm about to go to this government office, your mama would be like, where's your cardigan? Right? So like,
where's your button? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a lot the same, the respectability politics and what appropriate attire for the occasion and being late. I'm a professor at HBCU, so class is at 9, and that's like
soon come,
right? Yeah, that's the same.
Somebody I knew, like they're from Ghana, and they would say, like, of course, like our concept of time is a product of whiteness or whatever, but they was like, yo, we say we the like the back in there wherever they're from, they'll so like they'll tell somebody I will either see you when the sun is up or the sun is down, like that.
Yeah,
like the sun is gonna be up or down when I come. Ain't no yeah, so I think that's definitely like a diaspora thing because we just
Yeah, yeah,
we just you see me where you see me. I don't know.
yeah.
So outside of your research, is there anything in particular like I know you touched on it, but anything that like made you like I want to stay in Jamaica, like the core reason outside of the research.
So slowing down. So part of the great thing about me getting the Fulbright to come to Jamaica was it was a break from being booked and busy all the time. And so the pace, although, some situations it's I wish things would go a little bit faster, like work permit. But for everyday life, the pace of things um, was awesome and life changing for me to tell me to sit down. It's not that important. Um, Things that would get me frazzled, having friends that are like every day they wake up culturally, they wake up and like the sun is shining. God blessed me with breath. So whatever it is, what's meant to be is gonna be. And that's that. I can't be worried. I wanted to get this done today, but it didn't. So I'll try again tomorrow. Or, I was supposed to go to here, here, and here, but when I stopped at my friend's house, we started chatting and 3 hours went by and oh well, like that's okay. Like just that ease with time was very important and new to me. And it was an adjustment, but it was an adjustment that I needed and I appreciated and made me feel centered and made me feel like so when I come back and forth, like I feel the pressure of that like time and hurry up and everything's fast and um that I love about Jamaica. Um So that really is having to sit still and not having no choice but to sit still because the borders were closed. And being in Jamaica by myself and really growing relationships um, was also part of like why I was like, yeah, I could do this longer. And then I also then saw possibilities of for my research and me to stay. So
Okay, so your long term, do you like what your long term ambitions for Jamaica? Do you plan on being here forever, or
yes, I do plan on being here forever. Although I um I am back and forth. Um I would say 60-40, 70-30. Right now, I'd like to eventually have it be like I came for a week to visit my family, but I still have commitments. Here, and that sounds bad because I have a whole husband that lives in the US. So that doesn't sound, but he comes to Jamaica too, and he would much rather the visitation be him be in Jamaica than me be coming here. Um, but his job is one that I have to come here more at this point because of the nature of his work. But yeah, our long-term plan is not even long term. My 5 year plan is 5 years. We're both settled all the time in Jamaica. But my mom is getting ready to retire. I've convinced her to retire early and like enjoy her time. She's been working all this time. I feel like I already worked and I deserve to not work, and I still got like 30 years in the game. So I want my mom. So my mama is retiring, so she's about to be permanent, which is awesome. Um,
absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, long term plans. Like, what do you plan on doing in Jamaica? Like, it's like outside of research. So you have your business, Teach, Learn,
yeah.
Travel Jamaica. Are you going to expound further upon that?
Yes. So I would like to transition to academic adjacent, not being a professor forever. I would like, so teach, learn, travel is, I'd like to start doing study abroad, um, and study abroad's short term, long term. So winter break, 1 week intensives that they're doing service learning projects for a week, and winter break or spring break, then longer ones in the summertime. Writing retreats for my academic friends so that they can come get some of this piece and get some of their, we have to, it's publish or peril is the motto, the like that's what drives us. So being able to do that here. Um, but also just any type of people that want to come with a group and have some type of personal growth, spiritual growth, intellectual growth. I'd like to help people plan research projects, and how to carry them out in Jamaica. Um, I mean, academics have a lot of resources like sabbaticals and stuff, right? So, how to put Jamaica into their research so that they can get all this healing and do a research projects like not that's moving their current research into an international arena. Um, and yeah, so that's my long-term plan is to do that through my business and focus on that. And that's all.
That's amazing. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. So, y'all, we're gonna wrap it up. Nicole, if you have anything else you'd like to say, I'm gonna y'all. If y'all have any questions, this is the time now to ask them. But if you have anything you want to say, I guess in regards to the group or whoever's watching, I don't know.
I can't. Let me take it off the. I can't see who's watching.
I don't. I don't. You. I don't. You can probably.
Yeah, I can't see. So I don't know who's watching, but for those of you who are thinking about a move to Jamaica, if your spirit has moved you to do it, where there's a will, there's a way. But I'd also like this. No, this is this is an important point I'm going to bring up. People in Jamaica are diverse socioeconomically. So you can move to Jamaica and you don't have to, there's all different walks of life. So I think a lot of times people associate Jamaica as they're gonna move and be like this struggle life or move into like the hills and squat. And it's like, that like I'm gonna come and move into some capture land, and I'm like, no, that's not gonna work. But so I just want to encourage people to think about um, when they're thinking about moving, whatever your lifestyle is now is the lifestyle you're gonna want in Jamaica, right? And yeah, slow down. But if you're a person that likes to go out to dinners and stuff, you're still gonna want to do that in Jamaica. And so when you're thinking about budgets and how much it's going to cost to move to Jamaica, it's going to be about the same as your American lifestyle, right? So I want people to be like eyes open about that, because I think a lot of times people think moving to Jamaica is like moving to Thailand. And it's just not like, or Bali, and it's just going to be so much easier. It's not. And getting a job in Jamaica formally, right? It is not that's easy to either. Same way it's not easy for a Jamaican to just say, I want to move to the US and get a job, right? So
And thanks to this, and that's another thing. Because people, again, I think most people experience Jamaica through tourism, and it's like they don't understand it's actual processes and agencies.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't like no, but that ain't how it works.
Yeah, and they see it in extremes.
And it's be harder because you're a foreigner, like you know. So yeah,
yeah.
it's still stuff you got to deal with, but Thank you so much. So teach, learn, travel, Jamaica. I'm going to plug the info down here. But again, if you are interested in research in Jamaica, please.
Yes.
I'll be your person. Okay.
Yes, and please follow me on my stuff because I yes, I need people to follow me on my stuff so I can have more followers. And,
will be linked. Yeah,
it's been hard to shift my focus to me and my stuff outside of being Dr. T, the professor. So that's my 2022 is focused on my passion and teach, learn, travel Jamaica. So
someone says, which parish are you in? You're in Westmoreland.
No, I'm in Hanover, but I'm right on the edge of the grill.
Okay, she's in Hanover. Okay, yes. Yeah. Near the grill. Okay, all right. So that's it. Thank everyone for watching. If you have questions, either put them under the comment section, wherever you're watching at. All right, and then we'll try and get to it from there. But again, thank you so much, Nicole, for taking the time out to talk to us. This is a conversation, and I hope we can do it again.
Yes.
This time we'll have more research.
Yeah.
And is it? I don't know if that would be legit. I'm like, if there's any way that like the research could be assisted with, I don't know if someone would want to come forward and give you their experience or something. Would you be
so yeah, I'm the grant person, right? Like that. I love doing research and I love writing grants. So yes, I am planning to move expat journeys into a research agenda because I think it's really important. There's so many people in this group that have so many amazing stories that I think that there is some stuff to tease out on the lines of race, class, gender, nationality, right? That I'd love to tease out in my nerd self. So yeah, I hope that y'all will soon be seeing a call for like, do y'all want to be part of research?
Yeah. Of course. All right. Thank you. All right. Great spotlight. This was awesome. All right. So that's it, y'all.
And I see, where are we going? Discovery Bay?
No.
Run over that side.
Well, hold on. Let me put.
Over that side.
Runaway Bay.
Runaway Bay, yes. I'll see y'all in Runaway Bay.
Runaway Bay. All right. So Black expats and repats in Jamaica. We having a link up. All right. This is our first one of 2022. We are going to have a series of link ups throughout the year. So again, get ready to see a whole lot more of us. All right. Everywhere. All right. We're on the move. So that's it. I will see y'all later. Thank you again, Nicole. Have a good night. Congratulations on that retirement. I'll see you later, Miss Ma'am.
Yes, Mama.
All right. Bye.
Bye.